First.
Hello, assalamualaikum everyone. I am sorry for the delay, but we'll have to take a few minutes to wait for one more judge to come into the call. Thank you. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. Ada ni, Hana ni. Oh, tak tutup mic ke? Before we start, I would like to ask for attendance. The government team, are you all here? Okay. The opposition team, are you all here? All right, great. And all the judges are present and ready to judge. We will now start. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and a very good morning I bid to all. With the blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are gladly able to gather here today for the finals of English category for CFS Debate League. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, I thank you all for joining us today and I welcome each and every one of you warmly. My name is Ayman Mujaddid and I'm your chairperson for today's debate. And we also have Brother Ayman Hakimi as a timekeeper. I would also like to introduce our very esteemed panel of judges. Leading the team of judges, we have our Chief Judge, Brother Talha Akram. Next, we have Brother Muhammad Faiz, Brother Ahmad Amiruddin, Sister Christina Aftar, and Sister Faishatul Nisa Hanani. Before we begin, I will briefly explain the rules of today's debate. Speeches should be 7 minutes in duration. Speakers exceeding this may be penalized but should never be substantially less than this. A bell will be rung after the first minute, indicating the end of the protected zone. After 6 minutes, the bell will be rung once, marking the start of the no POI zone. After 7 minutes, the bell will be rung twice to signal the end of the speech. Speakers may finish their sentence and then end their speech. POIs may only be given to opposing teams and should be generally not more than 15 seconds in duration. If the speaker exceeds the 15 seconds duration, the chairperson may request the speaker to end their POI. Duration of the reply speech will be 4 minutes. Speakers must use formal language. Inappropriate language is prohibited. Debate sessions will always start with the government's first speaker, which is the Prime Minister. It is then followed by the opposition leader, then Deputy Prime Minister, then Deputy Opposition Leader, then government whips, and end the debate with the opposition whip. For reply speeches, both government and opposition sides are given 4 minutes of preparation for reply speeches. With the rules explained, we will now start our debate, and then let me announce the motion for today's debate. The motion before this House today is, assuming it exists, this House supports non-sentient AI or artificial intelligence that imitates deceased loved ones in appearance, personality, and mannerism. The government team today is Null, where the government team in this debate representing the Prime Minister or the first speaker is Sister Khadija. The second speaker is Sister Zulfa, and the third speaker or the whip is Sister Anis. The reply speech will be delivered by the second speaker, which is Sister Zulfa. Now we have the opposition team, which is Honors Cube. The opposition team in this debate are Yasmin as the first speaker, Sister Nuris as the second speaker, and Brother Ryan as the third speaker. The reply speech will be delivered by the first speaker of the opposition team, which is Sister Yasmin. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming our first speaker in today's debate, Sister Khadija from the government team, to the floor to open today's debate. Please welcome.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are. Please go ahead.
I'm starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning. I bid to the honorable educators, accurate timekeeper, fellow opposition team, my loyal teammates, and members of the floor. So the motion for today is, assuming it exists, this House supports non-sentient artificial intelligence that imitates deceased loved ones in appearance, personality, and mannerisms. And we as the government team today highly supports this motion while holding on to our stance, utilizing AI for the benefit of the nation. So first things first, I would like to do a lot of things for today, but now let's move on to the definition session. We would like to define a few things which are non-sentient, artificial intelligence, and imitates. So we would like to define non-sentient as in lack of awareness and consciousness. Means that this artificial intelligence does not have the awareness and consciousness like humans do. Next, we would like to define artificial intelligence as in computer systems that can think like humans. But we would like to state that these computer systems are not able to develop their own intelligence by themselves, but rather they are only pre-programmed to think like humans. They are programmed to think like how their creators want them to think. All right. And lastly, we would like to define imitate as in stimulate. So that's all for the definition session. Now let's move on to the status quo. As we can see, the status quo for today is that a lot of people suffer from loss of loved ones and regret not being able to say goodbye to their loved ones one last time. So this is why our team today would like to support this motion for them to recover from the suffering of the loss itself. And I will also like to provide a statistic, which is that it is estimated that 1.5 million children have lost one or both parents by the age of 15. And this is very devastating. So we would like to help them to recover their suffering of the loss of their parents. All right. So now let's move on to the stakeholders. Basically, the stakeholders are the parts of the society who suffered loss. All right. So basically, done with the stakeholders, now let's move on to the mechanism. Basically, I, as the Prime Minister today, would like to show you on how we will support this non-sentient artificial intelligence that imitates deceased loved ones. Basically, we would like to propose an artificial intelligence or computer system that can generate life-like avatars on display screen. We would not like to propose a 3D model of the deceased loved ones, but rather only making them like an avatar on screen, and the relatives of those deceased people can contact them, can communicate with them for one last time. All right, that is our mechanism. And next, we would like to set the parameters on on who are the ones who will be able to, who are allowed to provide these services to help the people who are suffering from the loss of their loved ones. Basically, we as the government will only state that only certified service providers that follow some guidelines provided by the government are allowed to provide these services to the people who are suffering. All right, so what are those guidelines basically? Okay, so firstly, one of the guidelines are the living ones can provide data on the deceased one's behavior, personality, and such by using short videos or photos of the deceased ones. This is not to violate the image and the legacy of the dead. This is to make sure that the image and the legacy of the deceased one is not harmed. All right. And next, our guideline. And the next guideline is that the records that is maintaining the privacy and confidentiality regarding of the disease are not to be disclosed to a third party without the consent of the deceased loved ones. And other than that, the government will not comply this initiative to derogatory uses or requests. And that is the guidelines for our mechanism for today. Basically, the people who want to provide these services will need to follow these guidelines provided by the government in order for them to be allowed to make the services for the people. All right. So next. Yes.
So I have a question. How will you provide the data? What kind of data will you collect?
All right. So the kind of that, I'm sorry.
What kind of data will site government collect? Like, will you collect the emails? Will you collect their voices, so on and so forth?
All right. So I have already stated on what data of the deceased loved ones do they need to use to in order to make these avatars. Basically, I have stated that the data of the deceased one can be gained by using the pictures or the short videos and such. I hope that answers your PRI. So basically, this initiative is categorized under the therapy offered by the government because we would like to help these people. All right. And other than that, we would like to state that the records and we would like to state that this initiative is actually under the government and also under the collaboration between the Ministry of Health and Ministry of Science and Technology. Why do we choose these two organizations? Because the Ministry of Health have the database and systems to keep privacy and confidential information of the disease, and they are known for being good at keeping it private. And for the role of the Ministry of Science and Technology is to back up and manage the initiative, which is the thing that we are proposing today. So now let's move on to the argument session. We are proposing this according to because all right. So so how will we support this motion will be elaborated by my Deputy Prime Minister. So basically, our proposal is according to what happened in China, where a company called Shanghai Fusuyin offered digital funeraling services using AI technology. And this initiative has gained positive feedback from customers. And we as a government today, we would like to propose the same thing in our country as well. And before I say it, I would like to reaffirm our stance for the day, which is this house supports non-sentient artificial intelligence that imitates deceased loved ones in appearance, personality, and mannerisms. While holding on to our stance, we would like to utilize AI for the benefit of the nation. With that, I've never been more proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you to Sister Khadija. Now, please welcome the first speaker of the opposition team, Sister Yasmin, to open their case on their side. Please welcome.
Hello, am I audible? Hello, my mic. Hello?
Yes, you are audible, sister.
Okay. Sorry. I'll
Before you start, brother Ryan, can you lower your hand? Okay, thank you.
begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Us on the opposition side here really wonder how exactly will government make sure that people can be happy, can be helped through this service. First of all, in my speech, I will be rebutting what the PM of the government side has said, and then be giving my point. First of all, I would like to clarify that this is a support motion. The motion itself is this House supports non-sentient artificial intelligence, and thus it's not a policy debate. The government side cannot assume that certain things like their guidelines will exist in a world where non-sentient artificial intelligence exists. So, for example, they mentioned about how this AI can help children who loses their parents, or people who and can help them with grief, and uh, they even outline several guidelines based on like who can provide this service. However, this is not something they can assume on their side because this is a support motion. They cannot enact any policies. They also mentioned about how the data can be gained through pictures and videos, and despite them saying that it's not in a way that can undermine the debt, there are a lot of ethical concerns regarding this with how the data could be used and about the consent that the consent of the dead loved one itself they are because they are already dead. Onto my argument is that this motion, if it was a non-sentient artificial intelligence, does not make people happy. On our side, in their world, it actually amplifies the grief that the people who lose their loved ones may feel, and it can even cause frustrations and so on and so forth. Now, why exactly is this true? This is because the people who use this service will know that they have died, and they will always like having this service is them being like seeing the image or seeing the appearance, personality and mannerism of the dead loved one, and it's honestly a bit uncanny. And also, when you have lost someone important to you, you don't want to be constantly reminded of them and of how they died. And when government says this can help them, they're not considering the fact that many people think that it can help them, but in fact, it actually harms them much more because they're constantly reliving the memory of the death of the person. When they see the face, when they hear the voice, when they do all that, it's very possible that they will be much more frustrated and stressed. Yes.
POI?
Excuse
Sorry, dia cakap ya. Then why is there positive feedback on the examples that we've given?
Can you repeat that?
Then why is there positive feedback on the China cases that we've exemplified just now?
Positive.
The China example that you mentioned before about something that it already exists, but here you are assuming that it is widespread and that it is very accessible, and that is not something that's true. Even if it can help a certain amount of people in your world, it's something that is widespread and accessible. Like you're assuming it's accessible, but it's not even accessible, right? But assuming that it is, you're not really saying that it helps people, because this is like only in China right now, right? That's only an example, and that is something that you cannot really see the effect of. That example does not really matter. People will struggle to move on because they will always think about their loved ones. Moving on is by accepting the fact that they no longer are alive and honoring their memory instead, rather than always wanting to hold on to the past memory or hold on to people who are no longer alive. They also cannot get the closure, like the opposition side has mentioned earlier, about that they can get their closure, they can have their like regrets resolved. But the problem is that
it's very likely that these AIs do not have the memories of the loved one. And it doesn't really provide the closure because you cannot assume that the memories are transferred. Thus, you are unable to resolve anything really. So for example, if you want to apologize for something you done wrong to the loved one that you lost, the AI does not have any memory of that, and it cannot really stimulate the situation. You can't really have the response that you would want because there is no relation there. They're only mimicking appearance, personality, and mannerism. And this can lead to more frustration because one would expect more from the AI, and they'll be upset that they can mimic 100%. In the situation, they cannot really think logically because they're in an emotional state. Most likely, they are feeling a lot of emotions and they want to resolve their grief, but then be disappointed and frustrated that they can't. Now, why is this bad exactly? A user who tries to find happiness with the AI, they will be unable to actually find it. And assuming that they try and try and try, they would be unable to pursue other things that have a much higher chance of making them happy. For example, their friends, interacting with other family members who are alive, or hobbies even. Because the AI thing is not really guaranteed to make them happy, but focusing so much on that will stop them from being able to be happy in other things. In Gov's world, they are providing the choice to have an AI imitate the deceased loved ones. It is a world where it's a world where there are people who will never move on because they made that choice that government had allowed to exist. With that, us on the opposition side, believe that fulfillment with an AI will never be able to compare with a real person and can even harm people emotionally. With that, I end my case. Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank Sister Yasmin for their speech now. And now I'll call upon the second speaker of the government team, Sister Zulfa, to continue the debate for their side. Please welcome.
AI as a tool.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. As the Deputy Prime Minister, I will get onto the points and supporting my team's stances. And I think because we are supporting our stances and we have more elaboration to give, a lot of the rebuttals given by the leader of opposition can actually be rebutted using the points that we are going to elaborate now. So with that, I'll elaborate first, then I will rebut. So first things first, I would like to talk about the 5 stages of grief, because that's what are the things that we are going to help the most when it comes to these kinds of loss, this kind of grief, and how we're going to use AI as a tool for, as I said, my Prime Minister said, which is in terms of therapy. That's why we put it under the Ministry of Health, because the Ministry of Health has the utility to use this. So basically, how we're going to do this, we are going to help them get through the 5 stages of grief, which is denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and of course the end goal, which is acceptance. So I'll brief a little bit about the few stages. Denial being that some people feel numb after the death of the person they care about. They may even carry on as though nothing has happened. If you're experiencing this, because it's hard to believe that person, is not coming back. And then there's anger, which is this very natural. It's very natural to feel anger. Everybody will feel anger when they get angry. When someone dies, death will seem cruel and unfair, and harder to when the person was died too young or is too young to die. If their death leaves a lot of responsible and practical problems, they may feel angry for the person who has died for leaving them, and be angry for themselves for being things for they think they didn't do right. And that's one of the points I would like to talk about as in the spectrum of anger, which is being angry at themselves that they didn't do something right. For example, like they didn't say sorry, or they have regrets within this spectrum of anger that are pinning them down to this stage of grief in the first place. And then there's bargaining. This is when people who's grieving start making deals with themselves, or perhaps a god if they are religious. Some people may find that they will keep going back to the past or ask a lot of what if questions, and they could go back and change things so that they could have that turned out differently. And thus, using some of the points, for example, in anger, where they are angry at themselves for doing not the right thing, and also bargaining, where they ask a lot of what ifs. We can use these first initial stages of grief to get through using tools, which is basically AI that we are proposing with the guidelines that we have proposed as well. Basically, having this AI will help them solve their what ifs and things that they regret. For example, what they doing right. Maybe it's something like, oh, I didn't say sorry. I didn't say this and that. And through this AI, they can help by simulating these kind of experiences. But then we get to the later stages, which is depression and acceptance. Acceptance is where we want to be. But how about depression? Through depression, that's where humans step in, where our therapists and our psychologists step in, because we are merely using AI as a tool as to help these people. But people will still be in charge to actually help these people, because we realize that there are flaws. There are flaws in AI, and we recognize that sometimes people still need human connections, as the leader opposition said, human connections. Thus, that's where therapists step in. So, while reminding them through therapy that to cherish the present moment and to make use of what is and not what was. As the leader opposition said, they're friends and so on and so forth. So we are not forcing them to be, oh, you have to look at this AI and you have to bargain with this AI and so on and so forth. We are in fact giving them solutions and helping them using these solutions while also going through a modern and conventional methods of therapy to help them through these kind of situations. And of course, in turn, would help them with the relationships with the present, which actually is the point given by the opposition. That's why I have to go on to these points before we can get on to the rebuttals. So I have rebutted some of the points within my elaboration. And then basically what she said as the leader opposition is basically that making this AI doesn't make them happy. Yes, we are not here to make them happy. We are here to lessen their suffering or help them shorten the period of time that they go through the suffering. We have never stated to make them happy. We have never stated that. That is the leader opposition's assumption towards us. But we have clearly stated that we are here not to actually help them be happy, but we are here to lessen their suffering. And as the opposition, you have to give us a solution or give us the reasons why they are not going to be happy. First things first. And why that these things won't decrease their suffering, because again, these things we have already said is to lessen their suffering. You have to give clear proof to us why it won't lessen their suffering, so on and so forth. Thus, even you say that, oh, this house should, we are not proposing a policy. This house supports. You said that this house supports, right? So we are not proposing a policy debate. We are actually supporting to the extent that we should apply it in our government. We should use it in our government. In fact, we are actually going through the motions. We are actually following the motions and so on and so forth. And we believe how beneficial this kind of AI until we want to put them in our government systems in the first place. Plus, these days, technology is being used in healthcare. Why not put AI in it as well? For example, because we have a lot of goals in society. For example, challenge Vision 2020, overcoming the 9 strategic challenges that have been determined, which is challenge number 6 in our nation, that is advancements of science and technology. Achieve the goals of making Malaysia a science-based and progressive society that is creative and far-sighted, and society that can not only take advantage of current technology and also contributing to the advancement of science and technology civilization of the future, which includes AI. So we're not only using the current standards of AI, but also realizing the future potential of AI. And with that, you as the opposition have to prove to me that the future potential AI cannot do what we are proposing, which is to lessen the suffering. And you are making assumption, oh, it's not going to make people happy, because we did not say that in the first place. So from your leader opposition, you have already made wrong assumptions about our side. With that, I would like to say a few things next. Basically, as our stance is basically to utilize AI for the benefit of the nation, to help these people who are suffering through loss. We are also giving a cause or resolution to this emotional turmoil and to assist them to this resolution of emotional turmoil. You yourself have to give another alternative. You have to propose an alternative that could be better, or at least propose something that could be similar or even better to what we are proposing. So that's one thing that is on your side. Another thing that the opposition has to prove to us is that there are another solution that are better solving this issue than AI that we are proposing, and also how AI does not reduce suffering in our cases with our guidelines, and how our guidelines actually are not sufficient enough for this cause. With that, I think I would like to end my speech. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sister Zulfa. Now, I call upon the second speaker of the opposition, Sister Nuris, to continue their speech. Thank you. Please welcome.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are, loud and clear.
Okay. I will begin in 3, 2, 1. it has come into our attention that the government has mentioned about them helping the people to overcome grief, and they mentioned the 5 stages of grief. But first, I wanted to say that we cannot generalize this, which means the 5 stages of grief is different to each of the people. So if the government wants to help people going into the acceptance stage, it means that everyone have their own phase, and they are less likely to move on at a specific timeline. So I don't think it is relevant to point out about them helping in the stages of grief. And then the second about the government saying that they are not forcing this for people, they are not forcing them to use this service. However, I will relate to this later on with my points. And then moving on to my arguments, continuing from leader of opposition. So the first one about the government saying that they are not forcing this service to the people. But if we're being realistic, most of the time these services are provided by the private companies or corporations. Why did I mention private companies and corporations? The first one is that they are likely to have the resources, which which the government do not have. And then what do we first think of a private company? Of course, about profit, right? I know that the government has mentioned about it having to deal with certain regulations, but what if the private companies exceed those regulations? And when we first think about private companies, they are profit driven, and they are created to earn money. And then about it being avatar and not a 3D model, but we are still using the system, and there are no final amount of resources. It's elastic. We don't have a specific number on how many resources are being put into providing the service. And then the second one, the private companies are most likely to exploit the chance of business opportunity that is being provided by the government. I mean, like stated, like millions of people die every day. Thus, within the company, for example, if a company make an advertisement about this service, then when the people is at their lowest, they are most likely to buy it. And it means that they and when people just lost their loved ones, they are most likely to buy it based on their soul emotions only, and they do not think of the consequences, because they are still in a state of grief where they still want to change things, where they still want to turn back time. And by government providing this service, it will make them like my leader of opposition said, they are not accepting the reality. They are living in their delusions when their loved one has actually died. It doesn't actually help them coping with that. It's just making them delusional about their loved ones already died. And then by the government supporting this motion, they are opening the pathways or the choice for the people to either move on just on their own or by using this AI. This means that the accessibility will increase. This means that the effect will also increase. I mean, if we stick to the normal of taking it slow to move on, it will be much better rather than you speaking with your loved ones every day, which renew your memory every day, just like my leader of opposition said.
Excuse me.
And no, about the access, like the government said, we can easily assume that the private company should be the one to produce, will be the one that is likely to produce AI. So they are likely to put a high price on this. Thus, it will be sold as a luxury items. Don't the government want to protect all of the people and not just the rich? So by the private putting a high price on this, it means that it only cares about the rich, because most of the time it's only them that can afford it. So it is not really in line with the government's trying to state that they want to support the people. They want to provide for all of the people. And then moving on to the short-term effect of what is providing by what on the stance of the opposition. The first one is, if we do not support the non-sentient of artificial intelligence, then the person can move on progressively instead of restarting it every time they see their loved ones in an unknown in the virtual form. And other than that, we from the opposition side cares about the people's mental and emotions, and also financial. We don't want them to make decisions on for example, the service must include a payment, right? So we don't want them to regret the decisions of them buying it without considering the aftermath consequences, because we have to remember that if people are in a state of grief, they are not really thinking much, and they're doing most of the decisions based on their emotions. And then, for example, like being stated, everyday people died. So what if a person, if a massive car accident happened and two loved ones of a person died, doesn't it mean that they have to choose either one? Because like we said, it is expensive, and most of the time only the rich can afford it. And if the government wants to say that they are subsidizing it, and then how would they subsidize it? And then would they really happy by having to choose between the two of their loved ones? And then moving on to the long term and the money, for we as a human, we are bound to move on. We are bound to forget things. We are bound to accept things as it is. So by they following this, they are constantly restarting it. Restarting the process of moving on. And let's say that they've moved on because like the government has said they wanted people to move on, but the money that they have spent, they cannot get it back. So even if a company is willing to refund them, does it really mean that they could get back all of it? Like I said, it is expensive and not everyone can afford it. And if the person is working hard for that, they cannot get back the money that they've spent on. And with that, I rest my case.
Thank you, Sister Nuris, for the speech. Now, let's welcome the third speaker of the government side, Sister Anis, to the floor.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. So, as my speech begins, I will first rebut the arguments given by the opposition team and also rebut the rebuttals given by the opposition team. First and foremost, they have made the arguments made by the opposition team are based on assumptions in which we've never stated that AI can make people happy. As my Deputy Prime Minister has said before, we said that we are utilizing tools in order for them to heal, in order for them to grieve over the dead and bid them farewell properly. Because while losing someone, you have certain regrets in which there is positive feedback in those cases in China in which those people said that they were relieved of their regrets when they use such tools. Second in seconds is regarding around the Deputy Prime Minister's argument, which is move on progressively. However, the Deputy Prime Minister didn't further elaborate on how Deputy Prime Minister of the leader of opposition never elaborated. Deputy Prime Minister of the opposition never elaborated on how they were going to move on progressively. Instead, they just made assumptions that people move on quicker like that. But you have to understand that there are tools in which people use to move on, and some of those tools are dangerous, such as alcoholism or even drugs. We're the government, in which we will specify on later. We will specify right now that we've never proposed privatized organizations, but rather we're using this under government. That's why we suggested the Ministry of Health and Ministry of Science and Technology, because they have those resources, and we have utilized resources in AI, as demonstrated by our banking systems today, in which we have launched AI in our banking services today by the UOB Bank, which is under government. So the opposition side is actually limiting the options in which people can grieve over the disease properly. And now moving on to financial aid or financial issues regarding the arguments given by the Deputy Prime Minister of the opposition side. They said it was financial issue. However, we've said first and foremost that it was under government. When it is under government, of course, we have considered the pricing in which it is regulated to the cost of therapy, ranging from about RM50 ringgit to about RM200 ringgit. which is affordable healthcare given by the government. As we said before, these are not controlled by privatized organizations. You have made assumptions towards the guidelines that we have specifically given. And you've also, moving on to the rebuttals made by the leader of opposition on the opposition side, they said that we undermined the debt. How are we undermining the debt if we have given the option of the deceased loved ones? The deceased loved ones are actually the disease loved one's choice. First and foremost, we're not forcing it on the people, and we're not undermining the image of these people, because we're trying to simulate it as close as possible to the videos and images given. It's pre-programmed, and the interaction given is not for derogatory or malicious intent. We've specified before in our guidelines, but you've ignored our guidelines. Furthermore, moving on to the extent of exceeding regulations, when we have first and foremost clarified our regulations to further reiterate that it will not be used for malicious intent, and if it is used by the malicious intent, it is controlled by government. If the person or say that the files are compromised, we can charge them under law, of which the government can proceed to illegalize. That's why we said it is controlled. It is controlled by certain people. Not anyone can just access a person's certain files. The Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Science and Technology are, of course, going to regulate it under fine circumstances in which if they compromise these files, then people will be charged. People will get into prison. People will be filed. I believe from the opposition side, they are ignoring the potential of the AI technologies in which my deputy prime minister, as well as my prime minister, have stated our arguments are solid. We are helping these people out. We have given our warrant and burden of proof, as well as the examples in which have received positive feedbacks. First and foremost, the first argument given by my prime minister, which is that AI is helping people grieve over their debt. Is helping people grieve over the debt, in which we have exemplified the finest examples in which there are positive feedbacks. Second is that we have explained the psychosocial burden that goes into therapy in the deceased loved ones. My deputy prime minister has elaborated first and foremost that we are making them go through the stages of grieving properly, in which they are regulated, in which they have find help and healthcare from the government. If the worst comes to worst, of course, humans will step in, as my deputy prime minister has said before. We are not going to just let them depend. We are not making this proposal as a crutch for the diseased loved ones, but rather we're making it a cure. And we're also moving on to the third point given by my deputy prime minister, which is it is in line with Vision 2020. We're not only accelerating technologies of today, but we're using it for the good of civilization and societies, as we said before. So this utilization will further enhance, and this further proves our stance that these utilizations of AI will benefit society as a whole. As people get over the grief much more efficiently and much more quickly, they are also doing it in a quality way, in which the government steps in which the government gives the finest guidelines and as well as operations. That's why we proposed it in the first place. So, of course, final declarations of today's debate coming from the government teams is that the AI utilized for today will benefit the society. First and foremost, while people are grieving and people are getting over these phases quickly, it also helps to increase the moralities of society, as well as further embed the compassion within our society, giving these options. Thank you very much. With all that has been said, I have never been much more prouder to be on the government side.
Thank you, Anis, for your speech. Last but definitely not least, I will welcome the third speaker from the opposition side, Brother Ryan, to the floor and deliver his speech.
I'll begin my am I audible?
Yes, you are, brother. Go ahead.
So I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. So, site government, as much as I would like to agree with site government that this kind of technology brings a lot of benefits, I wish I could see it in a good light. But however, with that being said, I think that the negatives outweighs the benefits. Now, as said by my DLO, NLO, we have proven to you that first, it does not make people happy, and there is also the issue of consent, and there is also the like site government has said, you're not there to make them happy, you're there to help them go through grief, 5 stages of grief. Now, when you're constantly now, I would like to reinforce the points that's made by my first PM regarding this statement. Now, when you're constantly reminded of them, you are stuck in a cycle where you see them, you see the people that died. How are you supposed to help them go through? I would say this is more like a portable grave. You're bringing it everywhere you go. You're bringing this dead person. It's like you're bringing a corpse.
POI?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, sorry. My Prime Minister has said that it's a one-off thing in which it's to bid a farewell for the very last time. It's a one-time.
So, but also, I would like to say clarify that government has only provided policy and not assumed things. Now, we have told you now that by being constantly reminded, and that's the one-way thing. What they mean by a one-way thing is that they're there to do farewells, but let's say they don't have memories of past experiences. So what are you there to confess there for? You're only talking to a doll that does not know anything. And also, you can't expect everything in that person. So how are you going to redeem yourself if it's not the exact carbon copy of that person? Because it's incomplete. Even the government acknowledges the flaws of its AI. So how are they going to redeem themselves? Now, moving on to the point, as stated by my DLO, regarding regarding the monopolization of this. Now, government has said corporations regulated under the government, but obviously we have to be realistic. Do you think that these corporations are angels? Do you think that they will be, oh, we obviously would like to help them for the sake of science, for the sake of the humanity? No. In fact, we can see in the current status quo, these tech giants who are willing to so-called work with governments, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, these people are profit-driven. All in their head, all their thinking is money, 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 and profit. They're not doing it for morality. They're not doing it for benefit. So in a way, government is leaving out a hole in the 5 stages of grief, in which companies will exploit the stage of grief itself. They will use it. They will use these victims. They will use it as a chance to monopolize upon it. So now, by saying this, government is giving a chance for these corporations to work under their umbrella, actually work and being regulated, being recognized. And this is why side opposition has shown the flaws of their mechanism. Now, we side opposition has posed 2 big threats to government, and yet they have failed to prove their case. We have shown to you how dangerous it is, how dangerous it could be, and while simultaneously we're not denying the benefits of AI, but not the benefits of AI in this spectrum. Now, we're saying that this is bad because they make people, now in our world, people may not move on. People might not even, let's say, people could move on naturally and they could accept the fact, while in their world, in the worst case scenario, people would kill themselves more and more because they couldn't redeem themselves. They see their faces in front of them. My loved one, let's say their loved one got massacred in a massacre, and you see their face, you see them, and to hear them reconstructed. Imagine if they were war victims. Imagine if they saw the deconstructed body, disfigured mannequin in front of them, this carcass of a body. And now, when the person suddenly goes back alive, perfect, in a perfect way, wouldn't they be traumatized? Wouldn't they be scared to see something like that? Now, our side has posed these questions to side government, and they have not proven their case. They have not given solutions.
POI?
Sure.
Do the deceased loved ones actually provide derogatory content towards the government?
What do you
Would
mean
the
by
loved
that?
ones do that? Would the loved ones grieve over something terrible? Meaning the content given is not the content that is the picture of them massacred. Why would the deceased loved ones give the worst for the deceased? Why would they have that simulated in the first place?
No, what I'm saying is the trauma that they experience, not giving the content. Because once they relieve the person in a perfect state, they could not relieve, that could not release the trauma. When a person dies, you bury them in the ground and you never think about them. That's why we don't make zombies out of people. Now, moving on. Actually, I would like to touch on one more point regarding the point of consent. I would like to elaborate this further. Actually, now let's say per se, as stated by my LO regarding consent. Now, let's say the deceased loved one. Now, in contract law, actually, in legal. Now, I'm going to go legal against government. Okay. Now, because this is actually something that works. Okay. Now, legally, a person in contract is able to retract their consent or agreement. Now, when a person dies, let's say government says, okay, we're gonna make a bill, we're gonna make an agreement. Okay, so you're gonna sign this, saying that you agree to your data being used after you die, and you're gonna allow them to use anything with it. Now, let's say if there's a heaven, let's say there is a afterlife. Let's say if the person sees that their data is being misused, being programmed, being coded by government to exploit them. Now, how would that person feel? They could not retract the consent. There are no in-betweeners between the dead and the life. And if they see, we could see that there are a lot of examples of AI being misused, deep fakes. What else? Like AI leaking out literal blueprints for weapons. Now we can see AI is flawed, and I don't believe that this is the solution for them. This is just basically, I would say, a modern version of fortune tellers back in the 1920s. We're just doing that. We're repeating the same mistake by providing them with these so-called pseudo therapies. Now, with that, I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan, and that ends our speeches. So now it is time for the preparation of reply speeches. The time given for each team will be 4 minutes. Debaters, please use this 4 minutes to prepare your reply speeches. You may start now. It is now time for the reply speeches. Starting first with the opposition team, please welcome the opposition summary speaker, Sister Yasmin. Floor is yours. I'm sorry, can you speak up? Your volume is quite low.
Am I audible right now?
Yeah, thank you. Loud and clear.
Okay. I'll begin my speech. I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. There's one thing that the government side has gotten insanely wrong, and that is the fact that they keep pushing for a policy. The fact of the matter is the fact that this debate is not about policy. Despite the other side, despite the government side saying that they aren't talking about policy, and in fact are supporting it, they keep giving policies. They keep talking about guidelines. They keep talking about how the government will do this, despite the fact that this motion is not about that. Now, first of all, what I want to do today is compare our arguments in this debate and also compare our work. First of all, on our side, we have talked about how the usage of this does not make people happy, how it can even the usage of AI can make people unhappy and can even detriment their mental well-being, as the LO me has talked about earlier. It was mentioned about that you will constantly be reminded of the fact that there is no closure, and the fact that you will most likely choose this AI service in a state of mental and emotional distress. You are not thinking, despite the government saying that this is a choice, but you don't know whether that choice will be made in a sound of mind. Then my second speaker has talked about private corporations will most likely take the advantage. She talked about how most likely the private corporations will be the ones who take up the responsibility in making these AIs, and because of that, they will most likely up the price because they are money driven and they want to take advantage of the most vulnerable people here, which are the people who lost their family and are making choices in an emotional state. Onto the government side, they talked about, as I mentioned before, they keep mentioning policies. And then the DPM talked about how they're not talking about policies, and yet they keep giving policies about their guidelines and how the government does this and that, despite not being able to do that. They said that we assumed it, and that's exactly what the debate wants. We have to make assumptions because this is not a policy debate. They talked about how AI will help people grieve, despite the fact that, as the first speaker of our side, me, has already talked about how it doesn't work. I already mentioned about how it actually makes people stuck and how it makes it harder for people to move on, how there's no closure. As my third speaker has also brought up again, the fact that this is not something that you can actually gain closure from. Onto our words. On our side, our world is not, people are not stuck in the state of denial in grief. The government side may say that this will help them, but they are not considering the fact that there are people who are emotional and then who want to believe that this person is not truly gone, and thus they will stay in the stage of denial because the feeling that the AI may provide. People are more likely to move on. Our side, people are more likely to move on, and people are not making desperate emotional financial choices. They'll be happier overall. Our worst case scenario is that it will take a long time for people to move on, but it's much worse on their side. As their side, the best case scenario is that some people may be happy, while others will make emotional choices, and then they won't be happy in the long run, and they will spend a lot of money and a lot of their time and effort and emotionally be affected by it. In their worst case scenario, as my third speaker has said, and my second speaker even said, they will never move on. They will constantly be this. There is most likely they will do that. They could become obsessive, and they can even be more frustrated with the loss of life itself, because as all the arguments in our side has mentioned, that it actually can harm them much more. With that, I have shown you why us on the opposition side has much stronger case, and with that, I rest my case.
Thank you, Sister Yasmin, for the summary. And now let's welcome the last speaker of the government giving her reply, Sister Zulfa, to sum up for their team and the debate as a whole. Please welcome.
The opposition has been making so many assumptions and they are rolling with it. And not only are they bringing assumptions, they are arguing against these assumptions, which makes the points not clash. And this is what me, as the reply speech giver, has a few issues when it comes to writing this reply speech. Because not only they are making up points and saying that these are our points, for example, the privatization, we have never mentioned privatization, and so on and so forth. And rebutting against that, they have not directly rebutted against our points. And while we, as government, have been head to head against their points, and the foundation of our stance still stands. However, the opposition not only does not have a base, and they are still in construction, and the materials that they are trying to construct their house with is the materials coming from out thin air. And they do not even mention a solution to which, if not AI, then what? And they said that, it's like talking to a doll. And our reply is easy. It's better than nothing. Okay. So next, I will go on to a few more things I would like to comment. For example, the issue with the whip giving up points in the last run. Okay. Whip is not supposed to give points. The whip is not supposed to give points. But not only has he given points, he have also stated that, quote unquote, in our people may not even move on. Which shows that not only are they not advocating for the people, they are also failing society, because they have said, quote by quote, in their world, people may not even move on. And they acknowledge that they worry that people may not even move on. And then they say that, but yeah, they just don't move on. They're not going to advocate for people, and they're failing society, and they're not in the best interest of people. It shows that. And even if the whip had a valid point, okay, I don't recognize points when the whip is giving it. But let's say I recognize the point which he said about traumatized. When the person is traumatized, all I can say is that when a person is traumatized, they see bad images of the person in their mind. And that's why we have these videos, we have these short videos, we have these images that show the best of this person, the best moments of them, so they can relive the best moments, not the bad moments of it. And this actually can help with their trauma, even if that was a valid point, which you gave in the end of your speech at the opposition whip. Also, they are also villainizing the Gulf by saying that and thinking that the Gulf is inhumane, giving that our policies are inhumane. Right now, they say there are not only not attacking our points, and then they are saying that, this is a support motion, this is a support motion. In fact, the reasons why we are giving policies, we are giving these guidelines because we keep repeating these things, because we support it until the extent that we should implement it in our government. And I think they have not seen that until now. I have said that in my speech as the Deputy Prime Minister, and they have not seen that until now. Not only did not see our stance, they do not see our guidelines, they do not see what we are proposing and how it's good for society, but they are also assuming so many things and also not getting the gist of our arguments. And with that, not only that, they're thinking that inhumane. They're realizing of, it's for profit, it's for profit, it's for profit, and thinking that it's inhumane. But then what they are arguing is not even related to the motion and not even related to our stance. Sometimes they are even faraway away from the motion. They are schooling away from the motion. All right, what else is there to say? All right. So with that, I think there is nothing else for me to say, because again, our points did not clash and they did not attack our stance. So I have nothing else to say. All in all, I think our stance still stands due to how we did not clash with each other, because we clashed with them, but they did not clash with us. With that, with the proof I have given and what I've said and the reiterations, with that, I would like to end my speech. Thank you. And this is why the government win. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sister Zulfa. And also thank you to all speakers for the great debate we had today in this morning. Let's give them a last round of applause. To the judges, you all may join the judges' breakout room to discuss for not more than 10 minutes. I will call you back in the main room after this time limit. Also, please note that after you have discussed, before I call you back, please send me the spreadsheet in our group. Thank you, judges. You may leave the main room and join your breakout room.
Aiman.
Aiman, Chairperson,
Hello.
may I have clarity?
Yes.
So we wait until the judges return. In the meantime, are we allowed to
Do anything?
talk or anything, or is it still
Yeah,
on
you
live or
can-
how?
You can chat amongst yourself. Congratulations.
As good sportsmanship lah.
Mm.
Ah.
Also, can I go get tea in your? Where are you? Can I go get tea?
Yeah.
I mean, like, I want tea.
Sure, go.
Guys from the opposition team, I just want to say good job, and it was a very good fight. Thank you.
Great job also,
Okay.
guys.
I mean, get the tea.
That's my cup actually, but I mean,
It's a cup.
lipstick stains.
Oh, no,
Ambil
you
lah,
want
tak
to
apa.
do
Ambil je, ambil je.
Why you so funny? Oh my god, my wife is sharing cup.
Tapi tak apa. Kamu nak putih. Tapi aku
Dia
rasa
jadi her. Dia kata, oh my god, I love being a woman.
aku faham je. Pasal macam ijab question kemarin dah. Kita pun nak bagi dia.
Guidelines. We had to give a guideline to what we support.
Technically we shouldn't sebab support.
Mm.
Tapi sebab kita cakap we support it to the extent.
Oh, dia
Tak tahu
telur.
lah. Boleh jadi kita actually preaching irrelevance saja.
Oh, ya Allah, Safwa.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Is everyone present? Government team? Hello, the government team. Can you confirm your attendance? Okay, maybe the opposition team? Honors Cube? Okay, the government team is present. The opposition team, can you voice out your presence? Okay, you're here. It's okay. Thank you. So government team, Zulfa is are your teammates here? Everyone? All right, okay. We'll be calling in the debate, the judges shortly, and we'll start with the, please calm down, Zulfa. We'll start with the feedback or adjudication shortly. But please note and remember that this is a silent round. Any personal feedback can be asked after the debate. I'll ask me for their numbers and I'll give you the judges' personal numbers for personal feedback. Any questions before we start with the adjudication? Going once, going twice. All right. All right. Thank you so much. We'll wait shortly. All right. Thank you to all the speakers for the great debate. Thank you to all the judges for being committed until this second. Dearest judges, you have a maximum of 10 minutes to give your verbal adjudications. I welcome.
Okay, so how you guys doing? Good? Okay, since this is the final debate, you have gone through like 3 days of debating nonstop, and throughout this debate, I could see some improvements that you guys had improved on regarding your speech, your organization, and such. And it was really, really an interesting debate. Okay, so the panel of educators have compiled some feedback to give you guys in order for you guys to improve more in the future. Okay, so the first thing that we would like to touch is on how you guys approach this motion. Okay, because this motion is about the nature of this motion is about policy debate. Okay, so when we are talking about it's not about policy debate. Sorry, the nature of this motion is not policy debate. So when it is not about policy debate, you don't have to touch on the mechanism as much. Instead, you should touch on the benefits and also the negativity of that motion. Okay. So coming from the government side, we as the educators would like to see the risk of AI and how you guys curb the risk more than how you implement the mechanism. Okay, that is what we want to see from you guys. And for the opposition side, we would like to see more on the after effect if you implement this motion into today's government, into today's society. That is what we would like to see more on both sides. Okay, because the educators have agreed that we see lack of in-depth manner towards that certain argument that you guys have put forth. Like the arguments that you guys have put forth are good. However, it is not in-depth. Okay, you did not elaborate much on that and you just touched the surface and moved to your next point. So that is something that you guys could work on. And how, okay, maybe you might think, how do you want to like make it more in depth, your elaborations? Okay, you need to work on your analysis. Okay, your analysis. You can use this 3 formula, which is why is it true, why is it bad or good, and why is it important? Okay, use these 3 to elaborate more on your points so that you don't just touch the surface. You went in depth into that argument. Okay, why is it true, why is it bad or good, and why is it important? Use these 3 to help you guys win this debate. Okay, another thing that we would like to see more is your organization when you want to construct your argument. Okay, don't just go here and there, here and there. We want to see your arguments flow like a stream of river, like a stream of water in a river. Okay, we don't want any obstacles. We just want your arguments to be smooth, a smooth cruise. Okay. And we also would like to remind you guys that this is not a policy debate, okay? It is more of a debate of the pros and cons. And when it is a debate about pros and cons, we cannot deny the fact that there are some pros and cons. However, we want to see you guys, how you guys handle the cons best, okay? How you guys handle the cons best. In which worlds would the cons not be that bad? In which world can the society thrive more, and in which world can the society cater more to the world that you are promoting? Okay, and another thing I would like to advise you guys is actually the last thing that I would like to advise to you guys is give out pure eyes and accept pure eyes. Don't be scared to give pure eyes and don't be scared to accept pure eyes. Okay, you as a group, you have to at least accept one POI. Okay, as a group, not as an individual, as a group, at least accept one POI. And if you can, if you have any inquiries or if you have any like misunderstanding, just give out some POIs so that the debate would be more interesting and not just like one-sided. Okay. So I think that is all for the verbal adjudications, and we wish you all best for the results. And you guys did a very good job. I can see the growth from day one until today. Okay. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Talha. Congratulations to all debaters again, and also thank you to our judges for being committed until the last second of our CFS Debate League. With that, we have come an end to our CFS Debate League with our final round being ended. I apologize for any inconveniences throughout this whole tournament/competition, and also thank you for participation for both participants and also judges. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Also, to participants, debaters, you can now move to LRA1. Thank you. Thank you all judges. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your commitment. I wish you a good life, inshallah. You may now leave the room.
Thank you, Ayman.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.